today's focus, we're going to be solving quadratics by graphing and still by factoring. To review, we're going to look at vertex form in the quadratic first. So vertex form looks this way. Remember guys that in this case, the a value here will give us our shape. So we know that when this is a positive, it's going to be opening up like a U. And if a is negative, it's going to be opening down like a frowny face. The h value, we know works together with the k value to give us our vertex. And that's the vertex is the point hk, and that's the turning point of our parabola, of our U-shape. Guys, last review here is when you identify the h value, remember this is the opposite of what you see when you're trying to identify it from an equation. So with that quick review, let's graph example A. In this case, this is vertex form. Here, my a value is -1. So the moment I know that a value, I know I'm going to have a opening down parabola. And when I have that shape, that's called concave down. And guys, more than that, when it's concave down, it has a maximal point at the vertex. It has a highest point. And we're just describing the graph. Again, this is in vertex form, so we'll kind of put that here in the blank. And then as we move along, we can identify the h and the k values from the equation. So h, recall that h is the opposite of what you see. So if you see a -1, your h is going to be a +1. And your k is going to be here a +4. So our vertex for this quadratic is the point 1, 4. That's 1 point. That's your turning point, your vertex, 1, 4. Now the goal for today is to solve by graphing. So all these things here are descriptors of the graph, and we'll do them to review. But the main goal today is going to be to solve. That means I want to find the x-intercepts. You can solve a quadratic by graphing when you find the x-intercepts. That's the goal for this in this case. Still, guys, once we have the vertex, if we're going to find additional points of your U-shape, we'll put the vertex in the center of this table, and then it's your job to find 2 additional points. So if I plot the vertex, the point 1, 4, here on this grid, it's 1, 4, that's at this point here. So I use that same blue. And then if I look back at this vocabulary, the axis of symmetry, if you recall, is the mirror line. It's the folding line of the U. So that's always going to be your h value. So it's going to be, in this case, at 1. It's the exact same value as your h value. So you can draw your mirror here on the graph at x equals to 1. This is your axis of symmetry. Because again, this is all review from first semester, but now it's coming back into play. To finish this example by graphing, you now have to finish this table. So you have the choice. You can pick the 2 previous x values. So here you can pick to work with 0 and -1, or the 2 next x values, which would be 2 and 3. So you can pick whichever ones you want. I'm going to go ahead and choose, for this example, to work with -1 and 0. I'm going to use those. So I need to find f of -1, and I need to find f of 0. And by finding those 2 additional points, I can graph my parabola, and once I have the graph, I can then identify the x-intercepts, which solves my quadratic. So in this case, I'm going to copy this example, so it's negative parentheses x minus 1 squared plus 4. I'm simply copying the original equation. I'll do it for the other one as well. So minus parentheses x minus 1 squared plus 4. And I'm just going to input, in this case, the -1 into where the x was at. And then for the other example, here I'm taking when x is 0, so I'm going to input a 0 now where x was at. So I'm going to evaluate these 2 little problems. So now I start. So I have -1 minus 1 is -2 squared, and the minus is still there, and so is the plus 4. Guys, going in the order operations, I'm going to now do the exponents. So -2 squared is a +4. So this is a positive 4, but then a positive 4 times a negative 1 altogether gives me a negative 4. Plus this other 4 equals 0. So f of negative 1 is 0. In other words, when x is negative 1, y is 0. So that's going to be another point here. To finish, I'm going to evaluate f of 0. So here 0 minus 1 is minus 1. So that gets taken care of first. Everything else comes down. Next, find the correct order. I'll do the exponent. Negative 1 squared means negative 1 times negative 1. That's a positive 1. And then this minus sign comes down afterwards. So it's going to be a positive 1. Then the minus sign comes on afterwards and have plus 4. To finish, 4 minus 1 is 3. So I've now found that f of 0 equals 3. In other words, when x is 0, y is 3. So I can put that here. When I plot these 2 points now, the point negative 1, 0 is going to be here at negative 1, 0, and the point 0, 3 is going to be here. So I can now reflect these points over the axis of symmetry, just like that. And if you look carefully, I've now graphed my parabola. I kind of missed, but you guys get the point. Guys, the goal for today is this. If we're going to solve a quadratic by graphing, you can do all this description stuff, which is fine, but your main goal is you want to find where does your graph cross the x-axis. In this case, your x-intercepts are negative 1, so negative 1, and positive 3. So negative 1 and positive 3. You've just solved this quadratic equation.